It's crazy to think about the fact that the PlayStation 2, original Xbox, GameCube, those systems are 20 years old, and maybe that's why they've kind of became almost like a retro system to some people, and their collectability has increased, especially over the past year. And the Xbox 360 and the PS3, the Wii, those are no different. We're talking about systems that are over 15 years old, and anytime you have something this long, and it's just sitting there collecting dust, don't you think it'd be a good idea to open it up and clean it? And I get that most people who watch my channel are probably very familiar with soft modding, and they've heard me talk about you should soft mod this system or this system. You do these software exploits that get you the ability to play backup games, emulators, things like that in your console, and do more with it than you were originally intended to do. But oftentimes the mods I talk about aren't actual chip-based mods where you're opening up the system, you're soldering something in. So for a lot of people who watch my channel, you've maybe actually never even opened up or unscrewed your system, peeled off that warranty sticker and voided it because it's long since expired anyways, and actually cleaned these things up, because a lot of these systems really do harbor an excessive amount of dust. And I would say really anything besides a handheld, anything that has a fan in, is definitely harboring quite a bit of dust and should be cleaned. After all these systems have risen in price over the last year, and condition plays a big role in it, so whether you want to keep them or get rid of them someday, keeping them in top-notch shape is going to be very important. Now, I do see some hesitancy towards this on sites like Reddit, where people are really skeptical about opening their system. They think they're going to break it. But, look, if you watch a video and you watch someone walk through how to clean it, I think you have a pretty good idea of what you're doing. But most importantly, if you're worried about breaking it today because you're opening it and you're going to mess something up, look, if you just keep it sitting there collecting dust, it's going to break itself, or it's going to have some sort of capacitor leak, something like that. Because honestly, the two modern disc-based systems that I oftentimes recommend people clean for sure are the original Xbox and the PlayStation 3. The thing with the original Xbox is, and I've talked about it before, has this clock capacitor in, this little capacitor that stores the date and time of the system. You may have even noticed that your system no longer even knows what the date or time is. It's probably because the clock capacitor has already went out and has began to leak. And it's kind of assumed, I think around 2018, people really started pushing for this idea that you should be removing the capacitor from the system, because I think it was at that time, roughly, that its leakage was becoming very, very apparent on basically all original Xbox models. The last ones produced, if it was produced, say, 2005, maybe you got a little bit of time yet, but for most of them, if you've not removed the clock capacitor yet, it's probably leaking into the board as we speak, which, is going to deteriorate the actual computer board and the system. It's going to eat away at it. I don't know the fine details of exactly what happens, but it's going to hurt the system's ability to, potentially turn on, the disk drive to open as it should, just a whole slew of things depending on where the acid goes and eating away at the actual computer board. Also, if you've never opened up a system before, I think the original Xbox is one of the best ones to open up first, just because it is so easy to get it open, pull the top off, and in a lot of ways, it really is just an old school computer. Whereas the Xbox 360, the one that came after, so much more complicated to open up for the obvious reasons. They didn't really want you modding the system the way people did so frequently with the original Xbox. Now, the PlayStation 3, on the other hand, is a system that is notorious for having the yellow light of death, is what they call it. Very similar to the red ring of death, except it seems to have really started to hit the PlayStation 3s within kind of the last 5 years. It's hit its stride. You didn't see it, back when the system was new. And basically, it's just a result of the system overheating, and that's primarily due to the fact that the actual paste on the chip is drying up, and it's not letting the chip cool in the way that it should, so you need to reapply new thermal paste to the system. And there's a ton of videos of how to do this, particularly for the fat model, as that obviously is an older model, the one that's most prone to overheating. You'll want to reapply new thermal paste in order to keep the system running as cool as you can. Now, this is actually a situation where it can somewhat be fixed through software modding. If you've modded your PlayStation 3, you can use Webman to gain control of the fan speed. You can set yourself, a different minimum fan speed, so it's always running at 30-40%. Of course, it's going to wear out your fan faster, but it's going to keep the system cooler. Or you can have the system just try to maintain a consistent temperature. You want to keep it under 70 degrees Celsius. If you want to put it at 65 degrees Celsius and try and lock the system in at maintaining that temperature, you can do that through Webman. fan and hopefully keep the system from overheating even without changing the thermal paste. Now, of course, you're going to keep the fan working harder, and maybe someday you'll be replacing the fan in the system instead. Between these two systems, and really the majority of the systems in the 2000s, they used what were called security bits. It's just a little like kind of star-shaped bit. You probably need to buy a set of these. You can easily get them at like any hardware store because you probably don't have one just sitting around. This isn't your typical Phillips screw or your flathead. It's like an actual star bit, but you can find them relatively easily at hardware stores. The one catch is that I ran into with the PlayStation 3 Slim in particular is it has like a star bit with a pin inside that's underneath the actual, kind of really underneath where the power button is on the PS3 Slim. And a few of those always give me a very hard time when I'm trying to open up the system. So I usually use a flathead to remove those, and then I just don't even bother putting them back in. So some of these, even if you don't have the right tools, just be gentle with it, and maybe you can work it, with a different type of screw. So I can't say it enough. You probably don't want to spend this summer buying a new retro system, having to scope out a deal on one because all the PlayStation 2s and PS3s and OG Xboxes are so expensive these days, and you broke yours because you never removed the clock capacitor on your OG Xbox. Look, just take care of the maintenance. Find some time this month, this summer, what have you, to get this taken care of, get these systems cleaned up, get that dust out of there, and just keep these things running smooth as close as you can to the day you brought them home. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Bailey, and I will see you in the next video.